Welcome to my channel.
The art of having difficult conversations. Are you uncomfortable at the thought of a difficult conversation? Do you keep putting off tough discussions expecting it to blow up in your face? You may choose to run, but that just delays the process, and in the end, what would have been a difficult conversation becomes an ugly confrontation, says Holly Weeks, author of Failure to Communicate. It's far better to have skills to be able to have difficult conversations than waiting for things to blow up in your face, she says. New vocabulary. The landscape of emotions has always been complex, and in a world full of quick reactions, read instant rage, it's a swamp that only pulls people under faster than they can imagine. Hence, it's essential more than ever to discover a new vocabulary for having tough, tricky and difficult conversations. Psychologist Sonali Gupta believes they are an inevitable part of life. Says Gupta, I think people put it off because they feel anxious, and it's quite normal to feel so. But it's still best to have that conversation. Her suggestion? Speak when the anxiety level is not at its peak, when the person you need to talk to is feeling relatively calmer and is not in midst of overwhelming emotions. If you detect an overwhelming emotion, keep the conversation for another time. That prickly raise question. A recent survey conducted by Fract asked nearly 1,100 people about difficult conversations at work, the ones that really make people squirm. Negotiating a raise was the most distressing. 58% of respondents felt uncomfortable having this discussion. Women reported more discomfort around negotiating a raise than men did. More than 66% of female respondents felt very or somewhat uncomfortable. Just over half of men shared that sentiment, see below. The first step towards having a difficult conversation is to treat it as normal conversation. How does one do it? It's wise not to be hyper about this talk. Then, focus on keeping it simple, and take a constructive, solution-oriented approach. Third-person story. Sheila Heen, lecturer on law at Harvard Law School and co-author of the bestseller, Difficult Conversations, How to Discuss What Matters Most, emphasizes on a tactic called third-person or starting from third-person story. Here's an example. If you're going to talk to your teammate, you're the first person, your teammate's point of view is the second person's view, and the third person is when you think like an impartial observer or a mediator. Tricky, isn't it, to achieve this middle path that both sides can agree on? Heen writes in Daily Blog, the key is learning to accept that there's a gap between your story and the other person's story, and try to bridge it. The more honest you can be about the gap, the faster and smoother the negotiation can become. Or vice versa. Deadlock pressure. If you are calm and centered, the job gets easier. An essential part of a successful outcome is never to feel pressurized to break the deadlock. If you come to a point where you have nothing to say, then just listen. Accept that you may not reach an agreement right now and be okay with that. As difficult as the immediate prospect of a tough conversation may sound or feel like, French-Canadian academic and professor of human resources, Jean-François Monzoni, believes facing and handling it ultimately results in having a better outcome, which involves less pain for you as well as the person you are talking to. The Tricky 10. UK's most difficult conversations in office. 1. Pay packets, 33%. 2. Inappropriate behavior in the workplace, 31%. 3. Feedback on poor performance, 30%. 4. Promotions, 23%. 5. Sex, 19%. 6. Relationship breakups, 17%. 7. Family relationships, 16%. 8. Money, 16%. 9. Health, 15%. 10. Letting someone go from a job, 10%. Survey conducted by Fract. Effects of conflict. A CPP Incorporated study of workplace conflict reveals that employees in the U.S. spend roughly 2.8 hours per week dealing with conflict. 1. 33% of employees said the conflict led to personal injury and attacks. 2. 22% reported it led to illness and absence from work. 3. 10% said project failure was a direct result. Pleasant path to tough talk. Be realistic, know that the other person may get angry, be shocked or take it well. No matter what your intent is, you have no control over how the other person would perceive it. Having said that, listen, respond to the other person's emotions and acknowledge that you understand their response. Simpler things like where you have the conversation can also go a long way in how it is received. It's important to remember that people take time to process, so give people time. Be compassionate, even when people don't deserve it. Often this helps in delivering the unpleasant with courage and honesty. Make sure the pace of the conversation is slow. Take time to find the right word, give the other person the chance to find the right words. To create clarity, let people know you are genuinely listening, summarize what they are telling you, and ask them to do the same.